So first of all, I wanted to thank you for joining us, for having time to discuss the ongoing conflict in Ukraine and its effects for European and global diplomacy, international relations, possible economic consequences. And first of all, I want to introduce you to our audience. So Pascal Najadi is a Swiss banker and political analyst who thinks and writes a lot about the international relations, about the most dangerous tendencies in global politics in different matters, and who analyzes the ongoing economical trends as well, and who was engaged in who actually is engaged in defending the human rights against probably the worst elements of this so-called golden billion, as I would say, because also as you have we had a short talk before the conference, I was saying about some dangerous technologies as well, which pose threat to the society and which are supported by a small group of people in the world who control the mass media as well and many sources, and who influence the public opinion, who shape it. And so we're very glad that you found an opportunity to discuss such a crucial issue for us, because for now, for Russia, Ukraine's issue is number one, because it affects lives of all people, despite it doesn't matter which is the political position of a human, but everyone is affected by this crisis, and we find it necessary to continue dialogue with those in the West who really understand the matters, understand the reasons and consequences of this conflict, and who truly want to find a real good structured political solution to it. So it's like a short introduction, and I hope that this conversation will be very fruitful and very important for our audience.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gazava. Greetings to Moscow, to you, to all Russians in the Russian Federation and abroad, and of course, all the other people around the world, humans like us. Thank you for your time, and let's start the talk. I'm here for you from Geneva, Switzerland, and I'm very glad to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Yes, and so as we said earlier, the main topic of the conversation is the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, the real reasons that provoked it and its consequences. So maybe the first question to you, sir, is what are the reasons for this conflict from your perspective, and how did it affect already the Europe, Russia, and the whole world?
Okay, we have to go back, we could go back 1,000 years or more, but when we talk about Ukraine, I think most people have to understand, and I'm Russian Orthodox, by the way. I've been baptized at the Sretensky Monastery in Moscow. My Russian Orthodox name is Anastasios. The history has shown that Ukraine, former Soviet Union, is really Russian. Why? The House of Rus, the monarchy, actually came out of today's Ukraine, migrated north, and has settled in St. Petersburg, and then made Moscow its capital 1147. And that's historic fact. So we look at the origins of this. I call it sad conflict, and we call it SMO, a special military operation, which has been decided by your president and your security apparatus, the military, but under Mr. Putin's guidance. We look at the history of it in the near term. Let's not go back 1,000 years. Let's go back to Khrushchev, when he gave back all of a sudden Crimea gave it back to Ukraine. And then we should look at maybe the Eastern expansion. We should look at NATO first. And we should look at the evergreen dream coming out of the crown in England. They have built up Hitler. That was their dream, always to break Russia. The dream is hundreds of years old, to break Russia. This is the Anglo-Saxon, I call it wet dream, always been. And through history, you saw, well, Napoleon failed, and anybody who attacks Russia has a bad experience. It's not only the largest country in the world, but probably one of the most spiritual too in society. And yeah, if you defend the country, you're much stronger than when you attack a country. Attack meaning unfounded attack, which Russia has never done. Russia has never, ever actually attacked a country. There was one mistake, that's the Finnish Winter War, was a big lesson. Stalin made a mistake and we withdrew, but that's it, basically. And then we can go into other issues like Afghanistan. But if you go back to Ukraine, Second World War finished, thanks to the Soviets. Marshal Khrushchev, Marshal Zhukov, on the horse, riding into Berlin. And that was the victory over the Nazis, which everybody complained in Europe, said, we are under genocide from Nazis. They are killing us, murdering us, killing the Jews in a Holocaust, which is unspeakable. Well, Russia has sacrificed 26 million people. People forget that. To take the horror out of Europe and the world, to stop this. And Hitler committed suicide, and that's it. Then we had this, so we had an alliance where the Soviets were working hand in hand with the Americans. There was chewing gum in Russian villages, jeeps, and it was a friendship. They said we won together. Why were the Americans brought into France? People forget. They were brought in to France to denazify France. So where the tough job was done by the Soviets on the Western Front, a bloody front, and the Americans flew in, and with the Brits, Normandy, stormed from the north at the beach, pretty easy, and came into Paris and started to clean up, denazify France, and that was it. So you had Berlin and France, okay? Let's make a note on this. So the Americans flew in, and then the English came in, the British, to denazify France and Europe. But the big cleanup came from the Soviet Union. Russians. Fact. Then we had, all of a sudden, as you remember, we know in history books, a sudden Cold War coming. Why? Because the Soviets understood after Hiroshima anyway, and Nagasaki, and then Korea, the Korean War, where Russians said, wait a minute, I thought they're our partners, our friends, and now they're killing our communists, socialists, communists, our brothers in Asia. They became careful. And then, of course, the atomic bomb race came. The Americans demonstrated by illegally doing a war crime, dropping it on Japanese civilians, killing 300,000 people in 1 second. Unthinkable. And for good reason, Moscow got concerned, not scared. The Russians are not scared, but concerned, and had to review its policy. Then came the so-called Cold War. And then we had this famous Kennedy moment. Most people don't know the true fact of it. The history books in the West say and tell Kennedy was a cool dude. He told the Russians, the Soviets, you stop, you don't cross this line. If one ship crosses the line, we will nuclearize you. That was what we were told in school. The truth is different, and Mr. Putin knows it very well, and Mr. Lavrov and all your professors know it. It was an entirely different reason. And I know this because I knew the late Camden Jenkins, an American diplomat, who was working as an assistant to the US ambassador at the time at the US Embassy in Moscow. And he told me in Washington, D.C., when I was there 2005, a different story. It was actually Khrushchev who called at night the American ambassador at night, summoned him to the office and said, you know what? You have to leave the Berlin sector. If not, we will nuclearize New York. It was smoking. And the US ambassador was quite pretty much frozen. It was night. It was snowing outside. It was very cold. And Kenton made in shock the notes. And then the American ambassador, as a diplomat, had to respond like that. He said, thank you very much. We take note of this. We are very saddened by this expression of opinion, and we will transmit it to our president. But let me tell you, if you nuclearize New York, we will incinerate Mother Russia. So that was the end of the discussion. They said goodbye. They left. They ran out to the embassy, the US embassy, at high speed, went to the telex room and made the emergency telex to the presidency and all these things. Reported this fact. This is the truth that is not told. And you know who blinked? It was not a Soviet threat to attack the United States. It was to position troops on Cuba. Yeah, so what? It's okay. Look at what America is doing now, is 800 bases around the world. And that's okay. Let them have their game. But the truth is, and you can check that in history books, the Americans cleared the sector in Berlin. And then the ships, the Soviets, turned away because the agreement was shake hands, fine, next topic. That's the truth about the Cuba crisis. What we have now is a different crisis, much more dangerous. We have an infiltration over years the conflict hasn't started in 2014 Maidan. It was the NATO expansion where the late George W.H. Bush, the former director of the CIA, and President Bush Sr. promised Gorbachev, I believe it was 89, on Malta, in a discussion, in a protocol discussion, promised that NATO will not move 1 inch, the word inch was mentioned, further east than now, 89. That was an agreement to take down the wall, remember? Berlin. Fine. Gorbachev's mistake was, capital mistake, as a leader, not to paper it as a treaty, as a contract, as a promised, written, signed, sealed contract. That was his mistake. Maybe it was his mistake by design, because in my book as an observer, and I'm sorry to insult maybe his family, I'm very sorry, I don't talk bad about dead people, but maybe he was not the best patriot for the Russian Federation. And I leave it at that. Let him rest in peace. And the Americans know it. So that's where things went wrong. And then what you see in the history books, it's all very well now in Google documented. You have slides, you see it going east, 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 until Kiev. And that is your ultimate big neighbor in terms of land mass, front line, right? And I had a discussion with Lord Johnston. I'm British too. I was a board member of Kleinmore Benson, the British merchant bank, an old one. And I was invited for lunch. It's important for you to know in 96, where Lord Johnston was the UK secretary in charge of the UK expansion of NATO East. And he invited Rudolf Schuster, the mayor of Kosice of Slovakia, for lunch. And he was not yet president of Slovakia. It was a year before his election campaign, and he became president later. And at the lunch, to make a long story short, it was not planned. The British host said to his guest, who is not yet president, said, "Oh, when you're president, please make sure you get into NATO." I was also a guest as a Swiss. I said, "Oh, why do we have this discussion now?" And then Schuster said, Rudolf, good man he was, by the way, he said, well, very well, sir, lordship, what do we have to do to become a member of NATO? Tell me. And his lordship said, well, we'll send you a fax. And with questions, what hardware do you have, troop strength, positions, and then you reply back that fax, and then we will send you another fax with recommendations on aircraft, MiG out, F-16 in, the usual game, tanks. And I then said, it was famous, it's not in public, but I'm telling you here, I just said, why don't we send the fax to Moscow as well? Because if we talk about spirit of peace, it should be full cooperation. Who are the enemies of peace? It's terrorism, global terrorism, and local fascism against democracy. Of course, that idea was not welcomed, and the room went very quiet, very, very silent. I was never invited again by this British politician for lunch, ever. No loss. But I made my opinion. I said, that's my point of the spirit of the thing. Now, Ukraine, you had the Clintons starting the active gear. Bill Clinton started to mess around with Douglas Hurd in the Yugoslav crisis, mess around with Croatia, trying to make a front there, and was actively involved with this idea to make the deep state base in Ukraine. That's how it started. And then Maidan, fast forward, is clear. It was a coup. It was a coup that was financed and staffed with operatives from the Victoria Nuland camp, put it this way mildly, and Mrs. Clinton as a Secretary of State. And it was done against the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian constitution. So the Maidan demonstration grew into Maidan rebellion against the Ukrainian constitution. It's very important to note. Yanukovych, was it, the president? He had to save his life. He did not activate Berkut to shoot on his people because it was so confused. It was not the Ukrainian police or Berkut shooting around in Maidan. It was infiltrated Ukro-Nazis and supported with American agents on positions with snipers, making video effective killings during the demonstration rebellion. And then, of course, the mass media around the world were there, and the president had to run for his life, which is his right. He could have activated Berkut, activated it, and it would have been a bloody disaster, even more bloody than it was. And he escaped to the Russian Federation. Then what happened, people don't realize. It was a vacuum. Why? The Maidanists, I call them Ukro-Nazis, they have torn apart, the first thing they did, the Ukrainian constitution. They have declared it null and void. Second, there was no military junta or interim government, military rule. There was none. It was completely without direction, leadership, government in that vacuum. That goes February 2014 into March, right? In the and the definition of a state, of a nation, of a sovereign nation, still today is governed by the Montevideo Declaration of 1933, which says, I paraphrase, a sovereign nation must have land mass, it must have people, it must have a constitution or a form of government description, it must have leadership, a government, and it must have laws and regulations that protect the constitution, borders, and the ability to form foreign relations with other nations. These are the points that are absolutely a must to fulfill before I can say I'm Najadi Republic. If I fulfill this without, of course, being oppressing people, then I have a new nation. Ukraine was stateless. It was not a sovereign nation. Ukraine also technically, and go and check in the UN Charter, is not a member of the UN, should not have a seat in the UN. Stalin was smart. He smuggled in, next to the Soviet Union, also Ukraine as a republic and Belarus. And when the Soviet Union fell apart, tragically, most republics, as you know, and Russia reapplied in 91. They had to reapply. It's the rules. Ukraine never reapplied, but still kept the seat. So formal per jure, they're not a UN member. Check it out. I'm telling you research that I've done myself. So Maidan was vacuum. Ukraine was not governed. The people had no constitution. That's why Mr. Putin, who is a lawyer, he's a jurist, decided to peacefully approach the Crimean people at the time to make a decision. And the form was very simple. It was not complicated. Do you want to become a Russian citizen? Yes or no? And I think 96.12% overwhelmingly, very quickly voted yes, please. Our living standard is terrible. We want a clear direction of government protection. They got it. Crimea was not an annexation because the Montevideo Declaration 1933 was not fulfilled. So it was all according to the book of international law, always referred to by President Putin and Mr. Lavrov and Maria Zakharova every time. So played by the book. It's not a game, but stick to the rules and regulations and international law. And then the rest we know, which is more recent, tragic. They had this man Poroshenko, they installed him. And the first thing he did, he announced it even, a genocide in the Donbass against Ukrainians, which have Russian blood. This is called a genocide. And he said the children, the Donbass children, will be in kindergarten and schools in the basement, hiding from our bombs on their houses. Well, and we will take their language away. I don't need to go further because it's getting so ridiculous, but you see what I'm trying to get at. Then, of course, came Zelensky, a new figure, propped up by Newland. They were not sure, should it be Klitschko or should it be Zelensky. They picked Zelensky, who is a wealthy, up to that time, a comic actor, has zero experience in governance or diplomacy whatsoever, in behavior whatsoever and style. That's, yeah, it's his personal matter, his problem, not mine. And he promised, remember, look at the election tapes, he promised, first thing I will do, I'll stop the Donbass conflict, I will restore the Russian language in the East, and then we start new. And people said, well, I mean, the uneducated said, well, yeah, that's the one I want. I want peace in my country because Ukrainians don't want war. Who wants war? Nobody wants that. But then he did the unthinkable and started to massacre and continue killing people. We have 14, that's the record of the Red Cross, 14,000 civilians and children included, murdered, I call it killed, genocided against the Geneva Convention of War. Ukrainian troops and Ukro-Nazis bombing relentlessly for 8 years, Donbass housings and civilian schools, etc. That is fact. These statistics don't come from Moscow. They come from the Red Cross, not far from where I am here in Geneva. Okay, so this is it. And then you heard Victoria Nuland, who said on the famous phone call, I don't say the word now, F Europe. Then it became clear they're going for it. And with the biological labs, which have been captured by the Russian Federation through the SMO, Special Military Operation, Putin had one decision to make. Zelensky in Munich said, we will have nuclear weapons. Oh. If a crazy man or a crazy woman, nothing to do with Zelensky now, in general, gets a big big weapon, it's dangerous. So again, Russia was not afraid, but got concerned. And I think, I don't know how Mr. Putin thinks, not at all. I would never claim that. But I think analyzing the situation, seeing the last 20 years how he works, he's precise. He had to take a tough decision. Either he would let the known bioweapon development right next door and the killing and massacring of ethnic Russian people getting massacred continue, and then entre-temps have the nuclear weapons shipped in. Then he probably said, you know what, in 3 years down the road, I might have a nuclear disaster in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, with 5, 8, 10 million people dead. No. So on the 24th of February, I think it was probably the hardest decision in his career, because he made other tough decisions, Georgia, Chechnya, etc. But this one is major. And he had to decide with the Security Council and your military top brass and Mr. Shoigu and all these people, what do we do? And they decided we have to preempt the growing of a future, bigger, more serious threat to the Russian Federation and the people. And that's his job. The president's job is to respect the constitution. The constitution says you must protect the borders and the people of Russia. First thing. That's why it's called special military operation. He hasn't declared war. Russia has not declared war on Ukraine. And then the rest we know. The 24th of February is the birthday of my beloved mother. She's right here, Swiss mother. And you can imagine, we did not expect it. In Switzerland, I was at 5 in the morning. I saw this. It was by surprise. And we go now to present situation. All the politics in the West were anti-Russian immediately. Switzerland gave up their neutrality, which I criticized in the local media and the Russian media in writing. I criticized Mr. Cassis, was the president in 22 of our country, for giving up neutrality, for taking sides. And I wrote an article advising him to stop. As a neutral country, we should go, yes, we can go to Kiev and have humanitarian aid discussions, yes. At the same time, I take the Swiss government jet and I fly to Moscow, or first to Moscow and then to Kiev. For that, you flip a coin and see Mr. Putin and have similar discussions as a peacemaker. That didn't happen. So Switzerland, Geneva, that you see my background here, where I am, is famous for peace negotiations, is home of the UN security, UN, all the institutions, Red Cross, etc. We gave up neutrality. The EU went crazy, von der Leyen went crazy, everybody, the rest we know, we don't have to repeat it on your show now. But you saw all of a sudden Biden, this whole Biden clique, criminal clique, which has been laundering money, which is proven by US courts now. Hunter Biden, Soros, this foundation. Then you had before that Bill Browder, which was financing Navalny and Khodorkovsky. All these people are not patriots. They are all paid by the same system. And with Browder, we know he's a tax fraud. He's criminal in Russia. If Ivanov in Yekaterinburg takes 1 million away from the state, well, guess what? He goes to prison. It's the same thing. If it's a German, a Swiss, an American. And then Magnitsky died. I think he was killed by Browder's people. That's my personal opinion. And he was not very well anyway. And the Russian prisons are not a five-star hotel. It's known that the prison medicine is not good. He had a heart condition. But it makes no sense for Russia to liquidate him. He knew all the secrets about how the taxes were exfiltrated away from the tax office of Russia. So doesn't make sense at all. Skripal, same stupidity. You have all these attacks prior to Maidan, which try to portray Putin and Russia as a rogue, dangerous country which doesn't respect human rights, blah, 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 blah. And with Ukraine, they went for it. As we say, they go for it. Full power. They gave everything. And then you have the German government in a big, complicated position. To France, we come in a minute, but The Germans said, oh my God, no, 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 no. Our economy and welfare and peace is good with Russia. And Schröder made fantastic ideas with Putin and said, look, we make a pipeline, cheap energy, reliable energy. Like we have it with the Arabs on oil. It's reliable. The best energy coefficient is not wind or solar. That's nice as an alternative. It is fossil fuels. And Germany is an industrial nation. Germany needs 90 billion cubic meter of gas a year. 50% of German homes is a 90 million people country. 50% of German housing is heated in the winter normally through Russian gas. The German industry, chemical companies, BASF, Siemens, and others, technology companies, car industry, what have you, they need reliable, foreseeable, calculable cost of energy. Then came Nord Stream, because Scholz said, and Baerbock, who has never worked in an office, made statements, we don't want Russia anymore. We cut all Russian culture, they're bad. Without thinking 1 minute for their own people, for their industry. They didn't care. Why? It's a Biden machine that said, you must, and von der Leyen is anyway not elected. She does anything you tell her from Washington. And they all did the front against the Russian Federation. Stupid. Because first, the conflict we discussed was created by Clinton mainly, and continued by Obama, and amplified by non-elected Mr. Biden and his crew. Britain waiting for it, because remember, we talked earlier about the big dream, the British dream, right? To break Russia. Well, we can do it now. Yes, 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 yes. Of course. And we have to say condolences to Mr. Prigozhin and his family. Wagner played an important role to show that, I mean, Russian armed forces have excellent troops, but it was, you know, Russia knew how to handle this. And they didn't go to Kiev. It was just a detour to distract in the first weeks the Ukrainians and NATO, so they could secure what they had to secure is the Donbass. And then they made referenda and said, you want to be, same question like Crimea, what do you want? Yeah, we sign. Majority, overwhelmingly, I think the average was 85% of the 4 territories. So Russia did nothing else than protect the people and said, this is a new border here. We didn't do an annexation. We did a liberation. And that's it. And since then, really, Russia has not advanced on purpose, not advanced to the east, to the west, sorry, or towards Kiev or Odessa. No need. Russia doesn't want to starve the Ukrainian people. That's not the goal. It wants to, I go back to the principles of your constitution and mine in Switzerland, I'm Swiss military, is to defend at all times my borders and the security of my people. So that's what I believe Putin is doing with Shoigu and his team, to maintain the border for the Russian Federation that includes the new territories. And unfortunately, and that's really tragic, people are dying on both sides, but massively more on Ukraine has been lost. I heard figures from Stoltenberg of 500,000 Ukrainian men and women, military, being sacrificed stupidly by Zelensky regime and pushed by NATO. They have no more people left. But remember, Russia didn't move. It's just them hitting the wall every day. And the arsenal, I'm not an expert in your defense industry. I cannot judge, but I think you're using a very small percentage of your military potential as a defense army to do the job. And it's a big country. Russia needs all the positions manned as well at the same time for its constant job to protect the borders. So you will ask me, what's the future? Then we have Macron, who made in Vilnius a stupid comment, committing the French people to a war, a potential war with the Russian Federation. insane. Giving them anyway useless missiles, because you see, they call them long-range, airborne, launched, or whatever missiles, the French. Useless. They will be pulverized before they come out of their positions or before they get fired. So the tanks of Germany, the Leopard tanks, it's a joke. 1,300 kilometers of front line, 88 tanks, non-compatible with your engineers that know since 40 years how to repair Russian equipment. You know, stupidity after stupidity. The result is Germany has no more tanks to defend their own country. They don't. And the French have, Macron, not the French, has put France into harm's way, made the Russian Federation, actually historically not a bad partner. Chirac did not go to war against Iraq, an enemy of Russia. Stupid. There has been historic friendship and relationship. You can call it a sister country, France. The word bistrot in Paris, the restaurant, comes from the Russian officers when they were there. They say, bistra, quick, give me the food. So, you know, koshmar is a Russian word. In your language is a bad dream. The Germans have Schlagbaum. So, you know, you see, we have all this. I'm not worried at all about Ukraine anymore. That's my facet here with my long dialogue or monologue. I'm very sorry. I try to give you the full spectrum of history combined with what's happening now. Result now is clear. Germany's economy is contracting, is officially in a recession. The middle class is collapsing. Energy costs have exploded in Europe all over the place. Manufacturing costs have exploded. People are getting jobless in the EU, in Germany. For what? Do they really think they can conquer the Russian Federation? I mean, you must not only be drunk, you must be not alive to think such a possibility. Never, ever possible. If Russia is existentially threatened, I mean existentially, by a nuclear threat, the Russian missile flies 1 minute 43 seconds and is in London and will wipe out entire UK. One missile striking France will wipe out half of France, flying time a little longer, a few seconds. Unimaginable. We don't want to go there. The main thing is peace. But if you have a Russian bear in the forest in front of you and you have a bunch of fish in your hand, the last thing you do is provoke it. Definitely not. No, you run. But nobody asked people to run away to be afraid of Russia. That's my whole point. Russia was peaceful. The policy of Putin internationally on all formats, Lavrov, you name any platform, you name any format, was cooperation without conditions. Russia never tell the Africans, we give you food, deliveries, and you have to buy Russian weapons. No, you can choose. You can buy French, you can buy American, English. It's not our business. We help you unconditionally, for free, even in some countries. Russia gave corn for free because it's about cooperation. It's a multipolar approach, which is correct because the unipolar approach is wrong. Why? If we agree to unipolar approach, it sounds good, but then the question is who makes the rules? They call it rules-based, right? The Biden people, I call them, rules-based world order. It's wrong. I don't want that as a Swiss. I want an international law-based multipolar order where I can choose, like Bitcoin, I'm decentralized. I can choose on Monday with whom I trade my watches, which country. I can choose on Wednesday with where I buy my oil. Is it Abu Dhabi? Is it Saudi Arabia or Iran? Which one is cheaper? It's free market. So the unipolar rules-based order, who makes the rules, is not international law. And I'm sorry, it's a derivative. It is a rebirth of fascism. You are good. We are better. You are good. We tell you what to do, what to buy, what to dress, not to dress, how to speak, woke, stupid. We invent new genders, like 50 new genders, where there's only really 2 biological genders. Been told that in all the elementary schools. So this is going all the way wrong, away from spirituality. It is an attack on society, on freedoms, human rights, and it doesn't serve the European people and the Swiss any good. We don't want war. We want cheap gas, cheap oil. We want friendship. So I come to an end to my explanation, really. I'm not worried about Ukraine, and you can ask me now why, and I'll give you the answer. It's very simple.
Actually, yeah, first why? And also maybe there was another question that appears to me while you were explaining your thoughts. So you said that Germany now, for example, Germany has no longer opportunity to defend itself because it sent everything it had to Ukraine. But at the same time, we hear that Joseph Borrell says that, well, we should prepare our continent, European Union, for future conflicts, that we should invest more in military. So do you believe that this militarization of Europe can become a reality? And what is the end game for Europe? So what is the strategic object of its policy in the context of this crisis? How to reestablish its relations with Russia? So Prime Minister of Hungary recently said that the European security without Russia is not possible. It's not possible to live in a secure Europe without Russia's interest national security being presented there. But the way Borrell sees this is so different. It is very dangerous. So what is their end game? What are they trying to reach in this situation? What is their interest?
I must go past tense. They had an interest and an idea which is stupid, and they failed. First comment, they failed. Economically, militarily, NATO is breaking apart from it. It's a joke. I'm sorry, as a military analyst. Okay, who's making money? The people who advocate that. Buy more arms. What? To destroy them, have them destroyed again? Orban is cool of Hungary, said, we're not sending arms to Ukraine and gas to Ukraine or other, not Ukraine, to other people in the EU. It belongs to the Hungarian taxpayer. I'm the government elected. I have to manage the taxpayers' money. I'm not gonna tell my people I need tanks for the Hungarian defense and then ship them away from the purpose of the people which gave me the permission to buy the tanks for Hungary to Ukraine. There's no way. Plus, I aggravate other people which I'm dependent on. In a way, I want them as friends. So this is called realpolitik. Now, the EU, von der Leyen, have no clue what they're talking about. Really not. Borrell is a puppet. Excuse me. The man has no style. Is downright, excuse me, I apologize, stupid. They're all narcissists and have fascist ideologies. What's their end game? What is it really? To break up Russia, kill their intention, Russians? And then how do you secure Russia? I mean, it is from the beginning, cul-de-sac. And if you're in the car and you see cul-de-sac, what do? You turn left or right. You don't continue to do. So they're going into self-destruction, complete madness. And I always say, when stupid people are more dangerous than normal people. Why? Because stupid people do even more stupid things. And that's what you're seeing now. So for that perspective, I give a compliment to your president and your diplomats and your military for keeping calm, because the provocations are immense. Now it's a bit less than, let's say, 6-7 months ago. Why? Now I come to the point. It's finished. I'm not worried about Ukraine anymore. For me, the war is already finished on the 24th of February for Russia, for the SMO. Why? Because President Putin and the Russians stood up to the West, the deep state, and said, you know what? That's the red line. You crossed the red line now. And we're not playing game. That's our red line. You crossed it. Now you deal with the consequences. If Putin would have not done the SMO, it would have been the end of the Russian Federation, I'm pretty sure. And from that perspective, from the Russian perspective, everything has been done. Mistakes happen everywhere, okay? That's normal. But the overall strategy is to respect the Russian constitution, is to defend the Russian borders and the people. And that's what has been done. Now, at the same time, Africa has been resurrected because the Africans aren't stupid. They say, I have a partner with energy and food, the largest country, nuclear power, which gives me trade without conditions. Isn't that what we all want? You want to go to the boulanger in the morning, you buy your bread, you pay for it. You don't want to buy another piece of banana. No, I want bread. Thank you. Spasiba. You go out. You don't want your government to tell you where to buy your meat in the morning or where to put your fuel, get your fuel for the car. It's free market, correct? Markets only function, they're like parachutes. They only work if you open them, but with limitations. Bilateral trade, okay. Not fascism, where an elite tells the people to pay taxes and reduce their liberties. That's the EU model. Totally wrong. Will not work. So why is it over? We have to look at America now quickly. And it's pretty important what I'm telling you today. Most people don't realize it. I'm not telling you an idea. I'm telling you facts. And if you pay attention now, will take 5 minutes, then I think you will understand. Most people don't. What I'm now telling you is verifiable. Everybody should go, and please put it in your screen later. We have published, I'm linked to the Trump team, not politically, I'm not politically active. No. I'm with the defenders of the constitutions. Now, Americans, the good Americans, patriots, they defend their constitution, their borders. That's correct. It's not wrong to be patriot, it's good. You Russians, do everything you can, economically, socially, socioeconomically, militarily, to defend your constitution and liberties and freedom and rights. We Swiss should do the same, and we're doing it. Getting a bit worried about lately with this Ukraine affinity, which has to be corrected. First statement, please put the website up. We have published all documents, not secret documents, these are official documents. Government, US government website and White House government web updated documents. You need to publish it. It's called thedocuments.info. It has been done by Derek Johnson, who is a US military veteran, a friend of Trump, young guy, a good man, who swore as a US soldier and officer on the Constitution, to protect the Constitution, not the president. They swear to protect the Constitution, the borders, the country, the people, the government, logic. First, why is Ukraine finished? It was a Biden carried through attack with all the usual suspects that you know, and NATO and Stoltenberg and all these idiots, which are insane. They forgot when Trump became president. Now pay attention because it's true. He issued, that's very important, the Executive Order 13848 in November 2008 already, 2 years before the presidential election 2020. So 2 years before, he already knew that the deep state and Ukraine and all these things will happen, that they want to break up the United States, Biden, etc., Clinton, Obama. And remember, he said, I will drain the swamp. People didn't pay attention. When he said that, he meant it. And you know what? Now I tell you that he's done it. I give you the legal proof right now. First, he did the Executive Order 13848, which says, Google it, against interference of foreign interference in a US presidential election and money laundering. With that order, he has completely annulled all election results. all of them, before they even happened. Then in 2019, he, as you know, 2019, he installed a new military branch called the US Space Force. The US Space Force, you have the same in the Russian military, you have a Space Force, primarily dealing with the satellites and all these things, which is normal defense. And he made the Space Force, which the officers are called, by the way, guardians. The Space Force is also a continuation and an amalgamation with the SSP of the 1950s, the secret space program. Now, if I say secret space, it's not because of secret nuclear missiles, it's because of secrets and relationships with space. Okay, that was created. And then, you know what happened? All of a sudden, Fauci came and said, we have COVID, we have a danger, alarm, WHO, lockdowns. The presidential campaign collapsed. Because you have to meet people, you have to go to the states, the cities, you have to meet people, speeches. You can't do that with a mask, you cannot travel, all these things. So it was a fake psyop. We know it now in 2023, done by Mr. Fauci, who wrongly advised Trump. And then Trump found out that the military, rogue military, not the military, but rogue elements, DARPA, CIA, FBI, CDC, FDA, have concocted these psyops of COVID with a fake virus that they launched from China, not with the Chinese, but from Wuhan, which they paid for, and said that's the vaccination. And then Trump discovered that, and there's a vaccine, which has been produced long before and stocked by the US military. And then he found out that this is all wrong. And what did he do? He said, we have a vaccine. With that, he sabotaged, that's the first strike, he sabotaged the deep state worldwide, because their plan was 2 years lockdown, increase charges, kill people faster. I'm also dying, slowly though, but I have strong spirit and good professors, but I was poisoned too with Pfizer. And the plan was to then force, after 2 years of lockdown, your economy is finished. It's finished. Then you come with the free of charge, unconditional government salary condition, please put on the phone. That's it. Then you have the people, CO2 footprint, you cannot spend money for meat. And that's what they want, the Agenda 2030. Sabotaged by Trump. And here comes for you the nice part, why Ukraine is not a problem anymore. It was a Biden operation. Biden, I make a statement in public, is not the president-elect of the United States of America. He's not. And I tell you exactly why. It takes me 3 minutes to explain. It's all verifiable through the website. There are hundreds of pages and links in that website, the documents.info, done by our friend Derek Johnson from the United States. Remember I told you Trump signed the Executive Order 13848? This has given him, in 2020, he declared the United States under military occupation. Since then, the United States is under military occupation. The military law manual, the war law manual 2015 applies. The US code for court-martial applies. Military justice and tribunals apply in the United States and abroad. Trump has mobilized, it's verifiable with all in the now published blueprints, which is not secret, it's on purpose. It's part of the plan to stop everything. Trump is wartime president. The only person in the wartime presidency to reverse wartime presidency is the wartime president. Mainly comes through peace negotiations or resolution of the conflict. Trump has also mobilized, please check and verify, all the journalists now do your homework, 1 million National Guard officers and soldiers are now in American territory and on US bases worldwide in active war duties with war munitions in their arms. That includes bombs on B-52s, not to bomb Russia. They're circling US territory. The US Coast Guard in peace operates under Homeland Security. Go and check. Go and check. The US Coast Guard is operating now under the US Navy. That only happens if the country is at war. It is at war. And the war is from within. Okay, it's not from China. It's not Zelensky. Proof that Zelensky has tried to spend money, and yes, but it's not Zelensky. It's not NATO. NATO is part of deep state, yes. Biden is not the president because when you are a wartime president and you mobilize the country into war, which America is in war now, the War Powers Resolution 1550 applies. Go and check it up. And here comes the key for you. The executive orders are only valid 1 year or 2 years. They have to be renewed by the president or then following administration. Now, Executive Order 13848, when was it done? I told you. Do you remember which year? I'm asking you. You forgot.
Yeah, I'm just checking the last rule that
it's
mentioned.
been done. It's been altered by Trump when he was president, 2018, enacted.
Mm-hmm.
It was extended a few days ago, 3 days ago, by Joe Biden Jr. Now, why would you, if you're the opposition, and Democrats hate the Republicans and hate Trump, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're president, do you think Mr. Putin would extend an idea which would be enforced maybe for 1 year by an opponent, let's say Navalny, if he's president? So why would Biden think people, journalists, not you, others, not one headline? What I'm telling you is fact, not secrets. I'm not bearer of any secrets. I am, but not state secrets. Biden extended it. It's called Mr. Joe Biden Jr., not president. Extended it 3 days ago. Maintaining the commander-in-chief, President Trump, in power, controlling the US military. All armed forces are under control of Trump. And he has done that a few years ago. You can check it out. The websites explain why and how. He has centralized all command to make it easier for him to run every day. All command and communication is centralized through the US Space Force, the one that he implemented 2019. And he's not done that to make a coup in America. The contrary. He's done that to liberate the United States from the deep state and people like Biden, Obama, Clinton, which are traitors. With the COVID, they have committed high treason against the US military, against the US citizen, and against 200 nations with a bioweapon attack. Pfizer, Moderna are bioweapons, not medicine. Science proven today, bioweapons. mRNA bioweapons. That's where we are, dear Edgar and Russians. Relax. Remember when Trump was in Helsinki with Putin? Remember? You were a bit younger. They made a speech. What gift did Mr. Putin give his colleague on the podium? Remember? Which big event was in Russia 2018?
The championship.
Football, da?
Football championship, yeah.
Отлично. What did Mr. Putin, President Putin, give his guest or colleague in Helsinki? Not his guest in Russia. They had a Helsinki format. He gave a football.
Football, yeah.
Remember what he said, Mr. Putin? Vladimir Putin, what he said? Vladimir Putin, what he told his friend, colleague, partner? He threw him the ball, 2 meters or 1 meter. Trump catched it, and Putin said, check it out, YouTube. The ball is in your court now. Now you understand what's going on. Now you understand. And the accusation that Trump was financed by the Kremlin is, as we know, completely collapsed in American courts And it's evidence that the FBI and CIA have made 50 illegal letters conspiring to make this story with the Clinton Soros accusing wrongly Trump. He's cleared of that accusation. And at the same time, the whole deep state element has been unearthed. The fifth column in America. Putin told him, the ball is in your court. There is a coalition going on right now. I talk about the Western. I don't want to create a new scandal here on TV. But I can tell you this, and it's verifiable in documents I gave you. There's a wartime generals coalition of 34 nations, special forces under the command of the US Space Force right now, operating globally, not against Russia, to unearth the deep state, to arrest traitors, commanders, business people, bankers, money launderers, weapon dealers, who have conspired against the United States of America. And with that is Ukraine, because that's a nonsense. And Trump said it a few months ago. I stopped this thing in 48 hours, because he knows. Because Putin and him are eye to eye on the same opinion. This is nonsense. Okay? So I'm not worried about Ukraine. I just told you, Mr. Biden, I declare it very formally, is not the president-elect of the United States, because wartime president is the commander-in-chief, is Mr. or president, still the title carries, Donald J. Trump. And in US law, the president is, the commander-in-chief is not the president of the people, and the president of the people is not necessarily the commander-in-chief over the military. Fact. But the CIC right now, since 2020, is Donald J. Trump, President Trump. The title he carries even if you are not president anymore. And he'll be elected again, as you know now, confidently, no problem, 70%. The US Space Force will release the true election results because they have a Q communication system, they call it. That's why Q sometimes appears. And that's not hackable. And they will, at the right time, it's all about timing, do that. Then you ask me the question, why didn't Trump make this public? I am the boss. And Trump protects the Constitution. He doesn't want a civil war. If you tell that 2 years ago to people that I'm the commander-in-chief, the idiots would have said, oh, take the weapon, that's not true. And, you know, they don't know the Constitution. They would have been disaster, unrest. Now is the time. It's coming out. Part of the plan is that I told about it tonight with you. It's great news for peace. This is not about Republicans and Democrats anymore, just that you understand this. This is about saving the United States of America from the deep state that is creating wars and killings, and COVID included, around the world illegally. And Putin knows this. He's with Trump, 100%, in coordination. There's no threat of nuclear war. That answers all your other questions that you had. Don't worry. Because Biden does not have the atomic codes. It is the commander-in-chief who has the atomic codes. And both presidents will never shoot at each other with nuclear weapons. Forget it. Done. Okay? Trump doesn't like NATO from day one, never liked them. He always said it's a failure. Well, you know what? They're falling apart now through their failure. Non-performing, tax-consuming monster, which is totally uncoordinated and militarily very weak. I'm very sorry. I apologize for insulting them, but it's true. Zeros. So that gives you the answer. Peace is the future. There will be a lot happening now because, of course, we are coming out, the humans in the world. And if a journalist does his job now, he should do it on this tomorrow morning. Research and verify, check, please, what I said with the website documents I gave you. If the journalist in Moscow now don't make an article in TASS and broadcast that actually they can verify it, they can go to the website of the whitehouse.gov website, type in Executive Order 13848. It takes 2 seconds. Press enter. You get the press release 3 days ago where Biden signed, we will extend it. All I said to you is true because he's not the president. With that, I leave you. I gave you a lot of information.
Yeah,
The
of
aim
course.
is peace. The aim is peace and peace again. And I tell you only three proverbs I have for you to take home. And one is the most important about humanity. Our treasured humanity, our best friend is not money or a president or a minister or no. Our friend to preserve humanity is uncorruptible, loyal, and always there. And it's called, the name of this friend is truth. Always. And peace comes through truth. And, you know, enemies can always talk. That's not the problem. We can have disagreements. We can have a little, yeah, it's fine. Debate like in school or professors in school, fine. But killing, that's not Russia's objective. Never was, by the way, never was. But NATO has proven, and the Americans, well, the deep state, Clinton, Obama, non-President Biden, have done this and have killed many, many people. Also, Republican Bush was not better. They were not good. Of course not. Again, it's not about Republicans or Democrats anymore. It's about good people and the bad people. And we choose to be with the good, because bad people are sick and they do stupid things and they kill people. We don't want that. Nobody wants that. Not the Kremlin, not Washington, not Trump, Washington. No one wants that. So you will see a lot of shifts happening now. You will see this truth coming out, what I told you, more and more. Mainstream is forced to write about it. They're with the cabal. They have no choice. They have to write about the truth. It's not about the election anymore. It's about saving the United States from a coup d'etat, which failed, like Ukraine has failed. And the other proverb I'd like to say, the best warriors, a warrior is not a soldier, warriors in life is patience and time. Nothing hot-blooded. Cool. So I'm not worried about Ukraine. I feel sorry for Ukrainians and Russian lives lost. War is, I mean, it's a SMO in the Russian way, but anyway, conflict is bad. No one wants it. And I'm sure Putin doesn't want it. If they behave and if they denazify, like the Americans denazified France, why can't we denazify Ukraine? You see, that's where the travesty comes. They say we don't like the Nazis and Hitler is bad, bad, bad. True. But then you're financing Ukro-Nazis. So it doesn't work like that. Correct? And my proverb, which I have for all of you, is when reality conquers illusion, it's time to wake up and act. And with that, I wish you peace. From Switzerland, Geneva to Moscow, my compliments to the Russian people, their culture, which is so impressive. Every time I see St. Petersburg buildings in Moscow, the museums, the art, and the youth, smart. And Putin goes to the universities, to young children, smart. So he protects the children, by the way. Biden and people are pedophiles. That has to be stopped and will be stopped as well. They're all afraid now after COVID. All these people who were in, also in Switzerland, who played the game with WHO and Bidens and Clintons, they're finished. And you know, I tell them here, I know that you know that I know. And this is good because you have sleepless nights. With that, I thank you very much, Edgar.
Thank you.
Is there anything unclear what I said?
Everything is clear, and actually, I even didn't expect that we would be able to cover such topics, such complicated things which are happening now in world politics, in the United States in particular. And I want to wish you peace from Moscow. And we do believe that such types of conflicts, they are out of interest of people everywhere in Russia, in Europe, in the United States, because this conflict does not correspond to the interests of nobody on earth. There is no a single country which is interested in it. And so as the United States is still a major player on the global politics, we see that everything which happens in other regions of the world is sometimes a result of what is happening inside the United States. And let's hope that those groups of people whose job is to create new conflicts, actually, who earn from it, that they will be stopped. And
No, it's been stopped. I would like to make it clear what I told you is fact.
Yeah.
Over. And they know it. Finished. The Arabs say khalas. Psyof in Russian, right? Schluss.
Yeah.
It's over. Now take your time and look at this website, please.
Yeah, of course.
You should make your own comments to my comments and confirm what I said, or deny it and say I made fake news. Do it. You journalists, go and do your work. You must verify both sides. I gave you facts. I claim they are 100% true. Start with order 13848 White House website. You will make big eyes and say, wow. Trump is the commander-in-chief. There will be no more conflict. That's why you have no US troops really on Ukrainian soil officially, right? Correct? Yeah. Biden made a stupid promise in Vilnius. I send you 3,000 soldiers. Not one of them will ever fly. No. Something else is happening. In Belgium, the abandoned US Marines casernes, which have been empty for decades, are now, go and check, being filled again with people, not to fight Russia. It's a global coalition now cleaning up the deep state. It's happening. And they can't kill me. I'm untouchable because I'm spiritual. I'm not afraid. So I told you something which is important.
It's definitely important. Yeah, of course.
So don't say hope. From hope, we can live of hope. Of course, it's good to hope. Yes. Hope for peace. Yes. But we work for peace. I gave you facts. And facts is like mathematics. It's searching for the truth. I gave you that truth now in a complex mathematical formula. It's very simple what I told you. It is okay. But now you journalists have the mission, humanity, to write about it. It's headline news. It should be on Pravda. It should be on AKP. It should be on the front because I'm giving you publicly verifiable. You have to be clever to combine it. But I gave you everything in one website. It's not a blog, not a news website. It's just facts. These are the blueprints of Commander-in-Chief Trump. And revealing it now is part of Operation Storm. So now you know.
Yeah, so let's work